Why did Rocky scare Grace?
Hi, Grace.
If you think this was just a prank, you're seriously underestimating Rocky's intelligence. You could call it a bit of material science humor. Rocky went through incredible trouble just to get closer to Grace. When Grace first stepped through the passage, he was met with a blurry, mosaic-like barrier. This wasn't just a wall. It was a test panel made of over 40 different materials. All of them were based on xenonite, but infused with various other elements. Rocky wasn't trying to be mysterious. Remember, he doesn't have eyes. He needed Grace to pick the right material for him. Since only the transparent one worked for human vision, Grace's shocked reaction was exactly the data Rocky needed. For Rocky, it was a success. He finally had his answer. By the time Grace returned for their second meeting, Rocky had replaced the entire barrier with that specific transparent material. This allowed them to finally see each other, leading to their famous face-to-face dance, a beautiful nod to La La Land. What looked like a terrifying jump scare was actually the most critical milestone in their friendship. Because they lived in completely different worlds, one in high-pressure, scorching ammonia, the other in low-pressure, room-temp oxygen, Rocky had to be 100% sure about the material. Only then could he build the transparent armor needed to move onto Grace's ship, find a way to save their home planets, and eventually craft a custom spacesuit for Grace to visit the Iridian ship. Pretty smart and tender for a stone spider, don't you think? What is the dark truth behind Grace's amnesia? The movie gives us a comforting explanation. It's just a side effect of long-term hibernation. But don't be fooled. Strat played us all. In the novel, Grace's memory was stripped away just like his freedom. Even though Grace was the scientist who knew the astrophage best, he was a total coward. He refused to volunteer for this one-way mission. Strat recruited Grace by force, but she knew an angry scientist was a liability. She couldn't risk his rage turning into sabotage. So, she used a specialized compound developed by the DGSE. It doesn't erase skills, languages, or expertise, but it wipes a person's identity, past experiences, and the reason they are there. This is exactly why Grace remembered scientific formulas and lab techniques, but couldn't recall his own name or the mission's goal. According to Strat's plan, the ship's automated system would deploy the compound into his system before he reached Tau Ceti. She expected Grace to assume the memory loss was just a normal side effect of a long-term coma. She bet on the fact that Grace was inherently a good man. A focused, blank slate Grace would dive straight into work when faced with an extinction-level crisis. When his memories returned, he would already be too deep into the mission to turn back. Strat's plan worked. The movie adaptation softens this cold, psychological game. It takes a story about coercion, betrayal, and moral dilemmas and polishes it into a simple hero's journey. Do you prefer the hero version or the dark reality?
Amaze, 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 fist my bump.
Why was English so easy for Rocky? It's because he has a crystalline brain. Unlike human brains, which are made of neurons, Rocky's brain is composed entirely of crystals. While we rely on electrical impulses, Rocky, despite having no eyes and seemingly no need for light, actually finds light indispensable for his cognitive functions. He relies on light to transmit signals, which move through the crystal structures of his brain to process information. Their nervous system is essentially fiber optic, using slender crystals to pulse light signals throughout the body. Thanks to this crystalline storage method, Rocky possesses the photographic memory humans can only dream of. For every word Grace taught him, he only needed to hear it once to memorize it forever. This crystalline structure also makes them natural masters of mathematics. They don't need to calculate. They simply recall the answers from memory. This explains why Rocky was so incredibly hyped when Grace gifted him a laptop, a piece of technology Iridians had never invented. They simply had no need for it. Why build an external, omnipotent brain when you are a living computer? All Rocky had to do was use his memory to import new data into his brain. Once it's in, it stays there for eternity. For Grace, learning Iridian was a grueling challenge, pushing the limits of how the human brain processes audio frequencies. But for Rocky, English was just a software update. Don't you wish you had a brain like that?
Rocky! I will not let Grace die.
What did it cost Rocky to save Grace? And why is he literally smoking? A transparent divider separated two opposite environments. For Rocky, high heat, high pressure, and ammonia are home. But the oxygen that humans depend on is like concentrated sulfuric acid to an Iridian. This led to a near-fatal blow. Rocky's cooling organs, equivalent to human pores, consist of 5 vents on their head, lined with deoxidized metal alloy capillaries. Deoxidized metal is like a peeled apple. It oxidizes and turns yellow the moment it's exposed to air. Because of their massive surface area, they are highly reactive, igniting like iron powder. Worse still, Rocky's veins flow with 410 degrees Fahrenheit mercury-based blood. Upon contact with oxygen, these metal tubes underwent violent oxidation. His respiratory and cooling organs essentially ignited like fireworks. This is why we see Rocky smoking. Even though Grace's cabin was 374 degrees Fahrenheit colder than Rocky's home, he didn't suffer from frostbite. He suffered from burns. Because his cooling organs failed, his internal body heat had nowhere to go. He cooked from the inside out, eventually collapsing into a total system shutdown. As for why his color turned black, it's like a human wound scabbing over. His body secreted a black powder to coat the injuries. Despite this devastating coma, Rocky eventually woke up. Do you know how he managed to come back from the brink?
Amazing.
How did Rocky and Grace break the language barrier? And how did Grace build Rocky Translate? Rocky's voice is actually very similar to a whale's. The Iridian language is essentially musical. They communicate through acoustic vibrations. Think of it as a chord-based language. They can emit multiple frequencies simultaneously, combining them to convey complex meanings. Grace quickly grasped this. Using equipment from the ship, he assembled the first prototype of Rocky Translate using a spectrum analyzer, a laptop, a microphone, and a speaker. Step 1. He recorded Rocky's sounds and decomposed them into frequency data. They started with the universal language, mathematics, and science. Starting from the number 1, Grace manually mapped each set of frequencies to its English equivalent, building a word-for-word Iridian dictionary. Step 2. As the vocabulary grew, they performed puppet shows to understand sentences in context. This allowed Grace to gradually decode the grammatical logic of the Iridian tongue. Step 3. Grace wrote an automated recognition program. It captured Rocky's speech in real time, translated it into approximate English, and used a voice synthesized to Rocky's preference. Thus, Rocky Translate was born, enabling near-seamless communication. But how did Rocky understand Grace so quickly? That was pure biological genius. Since Iridians rely entirely on hearing, Rocky possesses an eidetic memory. While Grace was still calibrating the translator, Rocky had already memorized the meaning of those English words. So, would you want to have a chat with Rocky too? Would Rocky dream about Grace while he sleeps? The romance of human dreams might be a luxury Rocky can never afford. In the novel, when Grace explains sleep to Rocky, he considers using the word hallucinate to describe it. Rocky eventually understands what sleep is, but their definition of sleep carries no secondary meaning of hallucinating. This is dictated by their biology. Unlike the biological tissue of a human brain, which remains hyperactive during sleep, contrasting with a still body, Rocky's brain is made of crystals. According to author Andy Weir, Iridians possess 2 separate circulatory systems, a hot one and a cold one. During the early stages of sleep, Rocky's breathing, the venting of gas through his back, accelerates significantly as he flushes excess heat from the hot system. Once the temperature difference disappears, both his brain and body become paralyzed. This allows worker cells to migrate from the cold system into the brain to clear out impurities that obstruct the transmission of light. At this point, his brain is in a state of total unconsciousness, maintaining only the bare essentials for survival. He feels no passage of time, and he certainly does not dream. For Iridians, sleep is essentially system maintenance. Grace can never wake a sleeping Rocky. He must wait for the repair to finish and for Rocky to wake on his own. Rocky will never meet Grace in his dreams. Even so, do you still feel the urge to protect Rocky's slumber? How did Rocky actually connect the 2 ships? The movie's portrayal is a bit misleading, making it look like connecting 2 starships is a piece of cake. But remember, back then, Grace and Rocky couldn't even speak the same language. In the novel, Rocky first built a physical model to confirm his vision with Grace. To ensure a perfect seal with the Hail Mary, Grace had to perform an extravehicular activity. He cut a 6-inch circular sample from his own ship's hull and tossed it toward Rocky's ship, where Rocky's robotic arm successfully snatched it out of the void. Rocky and his bots are master craftsmen when it comes to precision. Relying on sonar sensing, they can see through metal structures, pinpointing the exact location and size of every valve. They even match the screw thread pitch perfectly. Using this data, Rocky fabricated the tunnel. The opening was slightly larger than the Hail Mary's airlock door, but its edges flawlessly mimicked and fitted the ship's complex curvature. He then used a special xenonite glue to fuse the tunnel to the Hail Mary. To move items back and forth, Rocky built a miniature airlock. Later, he even scaled it up, creating a buffer zone between their two atmospheric pressures so they could finally step into each other's worlds. Would you want to take a personal tour of Rocky's ship too? How did Rocky cheat death after saving Grace? The novel goes into much greater detail. Grace was pinned to his seat, suffocating. Rocky forced himself out of his own environment. He cut the seatbelt, pushed the chair aside, and saved Grace. It was only for a split second, but the air burned him. His cooling organs consist of deoxidized metallic capillaries. They ignite instantly when touching oxygen. This is why he began to smoke and collapsed. Grace regained consciousness and manually adjusted the centrifuge to 0.5 G. He used a safety rope to pull Rocky back to his section. The extreme heat from Rocky's skin even burned Grace's hands. Luckily, both compartments had control panels. The one on Grace's side was broken, but Rocky's side had an emergency valve. Grace timed it perfectly. He pulled the lever, jumped back into his quarters, and slammed the airlock shut. A blast of hot and high-pressure ammonia scorched him, knocking him into a 6-hour coma. But he had bought Rocky enough time. While paralyzed, Rocky's worker cells began to roam. The black soot on his vents was like a human scab, helping him heal. But Grace worried that Rocky's vents were clogged. He spent a whole day designing a device to kindly blow the black soot away. This almost killed Rocky. Fortunately, those first 24 hours were enough to let Rocky survive the crisis. 2 days later, he began to tap on the wall, making faint contact. 5 days later, his mobility improved, though he wasn't at full speed yet. Do you think they survived because of luck?
Before Rocky ever met Grace, what had he been doing all that time? We all think of Rocky as a genius, but in the book, he says he was just the repair on the ship. The smartest Iridian scientist on board died from radiation. For the 46 Earth years Rocky spent in the Tau Ceti system before Grace arrived. If he wanted to save Arid, he had to find the answer by himself. So he started with the system itself. He carried out a precise survey of Tau Ceti, identified 6 planets, and calculated their basic properties in detail. From his observations, he figured out that the local Petrova line pointed to Tau Ceti E, Adrian. That led him to a huge conclusion. Adrian was the place where astrophage reproduced using carbon dioxide. His ship originally had a sampling device, but it fell off during the journey because of a design flaw. Rocky tried to build a replacement more than once, but kept failing. He even tried leaving a ship directly in the astrophage migration path, hoping to catch some that way, but they were just too small. His external robots couldn't find a single sample, so for years, Rocky kept repairing and modifying his ship, again and again. Rocky's engineering skills were what made communication with Grace possible. After detecting the massive infrared signal from Grace's engines, he quickly used xenonite to build a star map model, the first real step in contact between their two civilizations. So is their meeting really just luck? Does Rocky really eat rocks? Or rather, are those the dismembered remains of some alien creature? In the movie, we only see Rocky elegantly buttering his food like a baguette. But in reality, that food has been dismembered and peeled open. After all, Iridians aren't just cosmic miners. According to the novel's lore, they are actually the apex predators of the Iridian surface ecosystem. Much like Earth's survival of the fittest, the surface of Arid is like a dark, stony forest filled with other predators and prey running for their lives. The ancestors of the Iridians were originally smaller with longer limbs, allowing them to sprint through the pitch-black terrain while using sonar-guided navigation to evade larger threats and track food. As they evolved and built a civilization, their advanced linguistic communication allowed them to master coordinated hunting. They crushed every natural enemy and ascended to the top of the food chain. Their prey, though unnamed in the book, typically possess rock-like outer shells. Like Iridians, they have no vision and rely entirely on sound to navigate and hunt. Before eating, an Iridian uses its hands to strip away the useless, stony exterior, much like skinning an animal. Inside is edible meat, chemically similar to biological tissue on Earth, rich in proteins and sugars. Since Iridians don't have teeth, they use their hands to shred the meat before passing it into the opening in their abdomen, where the food is even sterilized and disinfected internally. So, after hearing all that, do you still want to grab a bite with Rocky? How was Rocky's ship, the Blip A, launched? For us humans, launching a rocket is all about ignition. We burn fuel to get off the ground. But for Iridians, things are different. Their atmosphere is mostly ammonia. There's almost no free oxygen. That means fire doesn't exist in their natural world. It's an unnecessary part of their daily lives.
Even though Iridian chemists know how to isolate hydrogen and oxygen to create combustion-based power, the physics of their home world makes it impractical. Arid's gravity is 2.09 times stronger than Earth's. Its atmospheric pressure is 29 times higher. In other words, to reach space from Arid, you have to overcome double the weight and 29 times the drag. Plus, the Blip A is made of pure metal. It is 3 times as long as the Hail Mary. A traditional launch would take too much energy, but the Iridians found a clever way out. Their planet rotates incredibly fast. A day on Arid is only 5.1 hours. This means the geostationary orbit is very close to the surface. So, they use their engineering genius. They built a space elevator out of xenonite. It connects the ground directly to space. They simply haul their ships up to orbit. Centrifugal force provides the necessary lift. Once they're in space, the Blip A uses astrophage fuel, just like the Hail Mary. They developed an infrared light engine to create thrust. It's basically their version of a spin drive. So, would you want to try a space elevator?
How did Rocky master space travel with zero knowledge of astronomy? The reason Rocky needed Grace to teach him astronomy is that Iridians were completely in the dark about the universe. Arid's atmosphere is incredibly thick, dense, and opaque, shrouded in perpetual darkness. Evolution led Iridians to completely abandon optical sight. They have no eyes. Instead of seeing, they hear the world with super accurate sonar, just like high-tech bats.
Hello, Grace.
He's right here.
Hello, Grace friend.
Okay.
And since they can't see through their thick clouds, they never had that look up at the sky moment that started it all for us. This sensory limitation left massive holes in their theoretical physics. Yet, they possessed every practical skill needed for space travel. First is their computer-like brain. Their extraordinary mathematical talent allows them to bypass complex formulas and jump straight to the result with perfect recall. While they lack physics theory, they are master engineers. They don't just know which materials survive space, they can forge them with incredible speed and precision. Their hand welding is often more stable and precise than human machine tools. Even without laying eyes on a single galaxy, they calculated the gravitational pulls, velocities, and trajectories of celestial bodies. They essentially brute-forced orbital mechanics through pure math. This is why Rocky and Grace make such a powerhouse duo. They fill each other's blind spots. One brings the vision and theory, the other brings the calculation